Hi, friends. It's Sarah Mae Bates. This is an episode about enabling versus loving. It's all about boundaries, setting boundaries, feeling okay about setting boundaries, making peace with the idea of setting boundaries. If you are a person who has passed with a loved one who was an addict or an alcoholic, this has a lot of that in it, or it's around personality types like that. So if that sounds like it's going to stir the mud in your pond and you don't want to get into that subject matter, just skip right to the tools. This, I think, will be helpful for you, whether or not you grew up with any parent that has issues with alcohol or drugs. It's really about if you're a person who is guided by guilt. Like if you are triggered in a relationship and then you are kind of your own guilt hijacks your system and makes you betray yourself. That is kind of what this is about. If you're struggling with setting boundaries, I think with triggering relationships, the addiction can be, meaning in the loved one, can be something totally different. It could be somebody who is really just obsessed with a relationship, who's like addicted to love. It could be a person who's addicted to a role, being needed, being indispensable in other people's lives. It could also be an actual thing that they're addicted to, like food, drugs, sex, exercise. Or it could just be a person who is like desperately afraid of being alone. And if you have a person in your life who is like that, who is kind of all consumed by something, it is a family condition, and in that it affects everybody around that person. So this might be a close loved one. It could be somebody that's in your immediate family. Whatever it is, it's a person who is preoccupied by an intense motive. Maybe that's drugs, reliance, intoxicating love, etc. Whatever the thing is, what is created by that is codependency. And what happens with codependency is to maintain the system as it is working in its imbalance. Everybody has to play a consistent role, which means in meta terms, whatever you do, don't point out the truth. Whatever you do, act like everything is normal, enable, and that is how you keep peace. However, it just means that everybody has to play a role in maintaining the craziness and maintaining the sickness. And I think for a lot of people, it's very conflicting because they're trying to be loving and you're trying really hard to be supportive and not hurt a person who's possibly very fragile or sensitive around something. And so what you end up doing is playing a role and you can't tell that you're supporting dysfunction. But it feels sick. It feels wrong in the moment. And your body tells you, like, I don't like this. This doesn't feel right. So, how do you tell if you're being loving or if you're being enabling? You're probably being both, but how do you tell? If you are finding you are a person who is enraged and triggered, like you find yourself wanting to blow up, or maybe you do blow up, or you find yourself so frustrated and you feel powerless by a relationship, by a dynamic in a relationship, you might find this episode helpful. And if you are unsure whether or not you are a codependent, you can ask yourself, do you obsess or fixate on the way another person lives their life? And does it kind of make you miserable? Are you finding yourself put into a position that feels very inappropriate to you? And are you put in that position consistently? Are you being put into compromising situations because of a person in your life? This episode might be a helpful starting point, if so. And also, I'm going to put a couple of my favorite books in the show notes. If you do read them, just ignore the parts that are not relevant to you. Like ignore words like alcoholic, if that's a thing that's not true for your situation. It is completely relevant regardless of that. I've found a lot of help in the books I'm putting in the show notes. And it's really know that this is all change that happens very gradually and it frees you from all of the feelings of powerlessness that are currently driving you insane. So, With that, this episode has three parts: the what, the why, and the how, the tools. And just a heads up, when I say like sickness, I'm kind of saying that as a metaphor. So don't feel like offended by that word. It's just meant to convey the way a behavior works, and it's not meant to belittle somebody. Also, I know that some relationships are really risky and change is very risky. And I say that because I know probably some of you are dealing with a person who is in a life or death addiction. So know that like that really requires professional support. Get professional support for you if you are navigating something like that. And I know that I'm not downplaying the severity of any of this. This is an episode to give you kind of context and not tell you how to take care of a sick family member. So I know that if it were my child, for example, I would involve as many professionals as possible in the seeking out help and support for all people involved, including myself, including anybody affected. So, with that, part one, the what. I want to describe how a relationship with a person who is occupied by an addiction or energetically consumed by an addiction might appear. They might be loving, wonderful, creative, driven, so great. You might adore this person. They might be living their life in ways that are clearly unbalanced in specific areas and dysfunctional in specific areas. So, what does that mean? Let's say you have someone in your life who is an adult and they are putting themselves in positions where their expectations are clearly out of alignment with the reality of other people. And so they get hurt again and again and you find that you watch them get destroyed emotionally on a loop. So they might have no self-esteem and you might get sucked into trying to help a person out of that system. And by system, I mean like that little loop of believing, of having expectations, of putting themselves in a place of harm and then having their expectations destroyed. And then you kind of like helping them build back up again. And so you might start to play a role in fixing that person. And you might see them as a victim and you might get so wrapped up into the terms of their little drama, like Tennessee Williams play of like, no, but you're good and you shouldn't feel bad and da da. And as soon as that happens, you are kind of now part of the system because your logic has been brought into the rules and the inner workings of the loop, whatever it is. It could be a totally different loop. It could also be a loop where you are watching a person who is addicted to opioids and they're kind of rationalizing the use of the opioids or they don't see that as a figure in their loop and so you're just not commenting on it, but you're trying to support them from the outside. Now you also are part of that person's system because you're validating it being normal and being a part of their just everyday life. Part two, the why. When a person is what I'm calling codependent or reliant on another person's caregiving, or they are sick with something like an obsession with another person, it's a pattern that starts a long, long time ago in ourselves on the outside of something like that, being like kind of attracted to people like that or finding ourselves playing a role for someone like that. Or if you yourself are a person like that finds yourself really wrapped up in caring for somebody that's like a broken wing type of person. And by that, I mean a person who has like a loop where they are not getting better and they have chronic, let's say, addiction problems, chronic self-destruction problems, whatever it is. If you are a person who is in a loop like that, usually those patterns start very young. And it's because oftentimes we have a parent who has either been abandoned emotionally, who is preoccupied by a substance, who is neglected, who was abused, who was fill in the blank, countless list of things that are kind of normal for a certain generation. It's like when you don't have the luxury of working on yourself and you grow up really young, when you become a parent yourself, you don't really have the ability to be there and witness another person. You're emotionally still a child. So what we do is we create kind of more lack in our own children. Not because we're bad people, but because we just don't have the skills or the built-in resources. So a lot of this could be because you had a parent who was simply young and incapable in certain ways. And so because of that, you will take on a parenting like role as a child. And you will also develop a relationship style that is childlike, emotionally childlike, in that you can't, as a child, if you can't get love because your parent is preoccupied, what we do is we develop other strategies to get love. So we control people. So we force love via alternative methods. And by that I mean like you fall apart. That's one way to get your parent to pay attention to you. You cry a lot. You become overly needy. That's one way to demand it. Or you become a mess and you require that other people take care of you. That's another way to force love. And or you manipulate with your body, for example. That's another way to like force love in relationships. Whatever the strategy, it you in the moment it's happening, we can't really see this pattern, and we can only see what is working, as a strategy. So in the moment you might be like in your relationship and crying and saying I'm a mess, and you're just seeing that it's getting attention from somebody else. So it's like that strategy in the moment is working, and you can't see that you're doing that it's something that's maladaptive. You can't tell that it's something that's negative that's creating the connection. It just feels like, oh, it's working. I'm getting connection. So it's like it almost reaffirms itself. So you might, if you have a parent that's like this, their immediate need is, I want people to stay with me and love me. And if I don't feel like I have that connection, I feel devastated and like worthless. So it's like these real, like severe swings between feelings. And sometimes this might show up in a person as overly being overly involved in a person's life. So, another way that, for example, parents who have abandonment issues create a reliant relationship that someone won't leave them is they are overactive in their parenting style. So, they might obsess about their child, they might do everything for their child, they make decisions for their child, they keep them small, they keep their wings clipped so that they don't leave. And what this does is it works. It makes it so that they're not abandoned, but it creates the other person's lack of individuation. It creates this person not thriving, not separating, not growing, not getting more brave and experiencing things through failure. It means it just kind of continues this loop. And sometimes just passes on the same dysfunction, which is a person that didn't develop fully in the areas they needed to develop, which as a loop now, it's like a, infantilized child and an overactive parent. And you might, as the overactive parent, think it's totally valid. You might think they're incapable, though. I have to fix them. I have to constantly do everything for them. And because otherwise they're gonna fail. Like I have to take care of them. They're not capable. I'm making their life better. So we can't see what's happening. And so I've explained like so many different types of loops that you could be a part of, but net, it's all kind of this original unmet need or fear that's kind of creating and perpetuating an imbalanced relationship. And that is just codependency in a nutshell. So people with abandonment issues will, out of fear, keep other people reliant on them, or force them to stay connected through threatening of different kinds. And if you are a person who is in the periphery of a relationship like this, you might watch it all happening and kind of see that it's pretty messed up. And you might feel for all the people involved, but it also can affect you. If you, even if you're outside of this relationship, it can affect you because you are a mirror to that person. So let's say you're reacting to them, they're in your life, you're responding to their situations that come up. You are enlisted as a part of the system and you have to reaffirm its laws and boundaries and all of that stuff that comes up might be triggering to you. It might be disorienting to you. So if you are in a relationship with somebody who is dysfunctional and a lot of this stuff is happening, it's really important to what I would call stay sober from the dysfunction. Like you have to stay outside of it. You have to ground into your own sanity and not get kind of sucked into it because it's really easy to get to lose yourself and then start to like get into the weird warped world of the system and become like a member of the town, like become a sheriff of the town of the dysfunction and be like, yeah, they shouldn't do that. And like, you're doing everything right. And that person's doing everything wrong. And like, suddenly you're a party of it. It's like, it's really easy to get sucked in. So, net net, there's a lot of different kinds of forms of codependency that come up in families. I'll just give you a couple of examples, like different kinds of examples. The one I already brought up, the mom that's afraid of abandonment. So she keeps her child infantile and oversteps in that child's life as an adult, maybe doing things for the child, managing the child's finances, serving the child. And in this system, the sickness will often come to a head when the child is forms a new relationship, a new adult relationship. So when a parent is overactive in a child's life and then that child gets married, for example, that over, overly involved parent relationship, because it's overstepping, it might force that new partner to look elsewhere for connection. It's like they don't have a role. So they become, in some ways, unnecessary. So I find that sometimes there are a lot of relationships that come up to a head or develop conflict because of the overactive parent involvement. Another example of codependent relationship, you might be, parents might have really bad relationship issues, but the parents are like underdeveloped emotionally. They don't have the resources to see their children, and therefore the children have to fight for love. They have to develop new strategies to be parented. And so, a strategy that a child might develop would be something like an eating disorder or an addiction. They will act out as a means to say, like, take care of me, be my parent, be involved. People who all develop disorders are also often like considered the truth speaker for the dysfunction because they're the one that's saying, you guys are fucked up and I don't want to be a part of this shit. And the parents blame the child and often focus on what's wrong with the child, but they're actually venting the built up anger and anxiety for the entire family, but they're the one that becomes the conduit for everybody to focus on and say, like, you're the problem, you're the one, like, everybody can just vent their anger through this child. So, those are really disparate examples, but if you're seeing any semblance of similarity, meaning there's something weird happening because there's this imbalance here and everybody's looking at this place, but it's actually coming from a bigger loop of behavior. If you're noticing that, your goal is to step outside of the loop and tether to what I'm going to call like a healthy, sober system outside of this one. Like you need to get clear headed and you need to ground with people who understand how these things work. And then from there, you can navigate the situation. But you really need to get into a healthy room, so to speak. If you're noticing that you are inside a system like this and it's making you angry and it's making you want to blow up, know that that is health and that is your boundaries that are being triggered. So know that you can listen to the boundaries and activate behind them and set healthy boundaries. And the goal is to set healthy boundaries so you do not blow up, so you do not explode at what is. Just by confronting the truth, like, oh, something's not sitting right with me. Something is feeling like I don't feel good about the behavior. Notice that, start to take steps toward aligning behind that. And when we can set healthy boundaries, then we don't blow up. Then we stay safe and we stay in truth. We stay protected. Stay in honoring truth. If you overstep your own boundaries, if you tolerate behavior that does not sit right with you and it is not healthy for you, that's when you explode. That's when eventually you find yourself like just crying with the anger and powerlessness. So, with that, here are some tools around boundaries and all this good stuff. Here's part three, the how, the tools. But first, a brief word from our sponsors. Okay, first of all, I know I already said this. If you're in a situation like this, get more help than just yourself. I recommend, outside of a therapist, I recommend Al Anon or any 12-step meeting. Even if the substance that is in the 12-step meeting is not the thing you're struggling with, it is so incredibly helpful to be in other people's energy flow where other people are trying really hard to honor themselves. It is empowering, like beyond words, just to witness someone else struggling with all their might because it alights strength in you. So that's like hugely, hugely helpful. I strongly recommend that. And past that, I have a couple of books I put in the show notes, and here are some more tools to get on your head on straight. All right, the first tool, stay sober from the system. So what happens when you watch a dysfunctional family member, even if you're not completely enmeshed with them, even if it's like from afar, if you are acting normal, you are kind of supporting it and you are kind of enlisted as a part of the townsfolk of the system. They want to make you mayor, they want to enlist you, they want to pull you in more and like involve you more in the dynamics of the thing. Like, don't you think I'm right? And can you believe this thing is happening? And like whatever the thing, whatever, however you're being recruited, it is it is almost like you are pretending. If you are not completely in truth at all times, a part of you is getting a little bit sicker, just a little bit at a time. You're kind of getting like lulled into crossing your own boundaries. And what I've found is if we have sick people in our lives, if we are not extra firm with our boundaries and extra consistent about stating the truth, as is represented by the world outside of the system, then we feel a little bit like we're getting a little bit sick. And so you might in the moment feel like I'm just being nice. I just don't want to I don't want to trigger them. I just want to be supportive and. But we are also becoming a part of the problem in that. We're becoming a part of validating sickness and acting normal with sickness, which I think personally is, I mean, it doesn't sit right when you think about it after the fact. Like when you think about it from afar, your body kind of tells you, like, I don't feel good about being a part of this. I don't feel good about supporting something that's not good for people. So I think more than anything, this tool is how can you, in your own way, in your own feeling comfortable with your own behavior, feeling not confrontational, you don't have to be confrontational, but how can you stay aligned with your values and with truth and still be a part of this relationship? If this is a relationship you want to keep in your life, you got to ask yourself, what do I need to do to respect myself in the face of it? And that might be as simple as saying, my boundary is when they try and involve me, I say, you know what? You know how I feel about this? I can't talk to you about this because I don't think it's healthy. Or you might have a boundary where you say, okay, I'm going to love them from afar, but they cannot be in my house and be high. Or they cannot recruit me to be a part of their dysfunctional loop of trash talking or whatever the thing is. You just need to stay outside of the range of participating in the system physically, emotionally, and basically know where you stand. Make your own rules for where I do go and where I don't go so I can stay me. All right. Next tool, behavior communication. When when we get involved with people who are codependent and or who are addicts of any shape and form, we often get lost in the content and get lost in the words and get lost in the drama of whatever the loop is. And so one way to really ground and get like clear in our own heads is to just ask, what does their behavior tell you? What does it tell you about where they are, where they aren't, what's really happening, what the main character in the situation is? And by that I mean sometimes people are saying, I'm, doing all these things and I'm trying everything and I'm doing everything right and I'm whatever. But you can see from afar, if you just turn off all the words and you just squint at who this person is, it'll tell you everything you need to know. And usually the main character in any situation is a substance, is depression, is a pattern, a lack of self-love, but you can see things in a much more telegraphic way if you just turn off the words. It's really easy to get lost in just what's being said. And that'll sometimes guide you, I think, in your gut. If you just look at behavior, it can guide you to what needs to be done. Sometimes it's something super simple that needs to be done. All right. Next tool for the person who is being affected by a situation like this, the tool is enabling versus loving. I want you to ask yourself for yourself. Sometimes we get so sucked into the drama of a situation that we really think we're helping, but we find that the loop just starts over and over again. I want you to ask, is my behavior helping their dysfunction thrive? Or is it being supportive of their growth? It's a really hard thing to recognize because it often feels mean. Like to draw a hard boundary feels mean, or it feels hostile, it feels cold, it feels scary, like threatening. But when we are acting normal or we are getting involved in like the loop, we are actually reaffirming what is keeping someone legitimately miserable and self-hating and dysfunctional. For people to heal, they really need to see the problem. And often that is through suffering and confrontation via life factors. It really sucks to say this, and I don't know if I could deal with it if it were my child, but the best way to help someone is often to allow them to move through the friction of hard moments and allow them to show up for themselves, not through being fixed. One of the most important things, the place I used to work as a counselor where I was training was all very low income, but it was essential that everybody pay something for their sessions with their therapists, even if they were on like in, the lowest economic bracket. And the reason for that is because otherwise they did not show up. And when you are invested in your own saving, when you are putting something on the line, you feel valuable, you feel of worth. You feel like it's yours. Somebody has to get there through their own hard work and claiming it for themselves. They can't have it given to them. They can't be fixed by other people. They have to choose to do the work themselves. And I'm not saying that, like, if they are demonstrating that they do want something, that you can't be a part of that path. I'm just saying if somebody isn't going to try, they're not going to show up for themselves, you can just throw all the resources at them and it won't make a dent. So that's just a little question I want to ask. Is my behavior enabling or is it loving? Is it helping them maintain the sickness or is it supporting their growth? All right, the next tool, the acid test. If you are a person who is struggling with a codependent loop in your life, I want you to ask if you have supportive people around you or if you have people who are unconsciously trying to keep you with your wings clipped. Like, are they supporting you staying small? If that makes any sense. Like, in other words, what does support look like, and what does sickness look like? If if you are a person that's saying, I need to draw a boundary, I really need to go to a meeting because I'm really trying hard to grow myself, or I'm really trying not to drink right now because I'm trying to get healthier. If you're finding people around you are hostile in response to that, it's because they are reaffirming the sickness of the system. It's a very confusing thing because you might be coming from such a good place. You might be saying, I'm trying really hard to work on myself. I'm trying really hard to grow. I'm trying to overcome this habit, this loop, whatever it is. And even people that care about you outside of you might say, oh, you're being selfish. Oh, you're making it all about you. And oh, they might be threatened by that. So if you're noticing that, if you are witnessing hostility coming back at you, know that that is coming from a place of people trying to maintain status quo, and we have to get out of that system, protect our energy, and get into a healthier system, meaning like an outside group of people. And know that those people, even if they love you and that are doing that, a lot of the time it's totally unconscious. And it's them being really addicted to a role that they have played in your life for a very long time. So they're telling you, like, you're never going to change. You're never going to be different than that. Don't even try. That's them unconsciously feeding off of the role they've had of being superior. And know that it is possible to reset this system. You just have to be you have to leap outside of it and become back to it as a totally new person. And that is when they can see you for the first time. That is when they finally like recognize like, oh, no, I can't even relate to you on the same terms anymore. They have grown leaps and bounds beyond who they were before. Right now, if you're in a situation like that, my advice is to find people who support your health, who respect the dire need to see your therapist, who respect your need to be more sane. And you need people who covet health in you and support it in you. And that shows that they have your best interests at heart. All right, the next tool, the rule of any system. If you are choosing to stay connected to someone who is not functioning in a healthy way, the number one rule for you, if you're going to be in their lives, is to stay healthy and grounded in your boundaries and respect the truth, not the sick loop. And what do I mean by that? You have to recognize at all times that you cannot change their loop. Only people inside of it can choose to change, but you have to ask yourself, if you're going to keep them in your life, how do I stay healthy and grounded, and how do I not get sucked into that world? Also, you have to ask yourself, how do I stay honest with myself and really respect I am powerless to change them? No matter what I say, how many bargains I make, how many wishes I make, how nicely I say it, people who demonstrate they are dysfunctional and do not respect your boundaries, your words are not going to affect them. You have to set boundaries with your actions, and you have to accept that that is true and remember that it's true, and do not put your head under their feet to be stepped on. It's like, do not open up your expectations for things to miraculously be different. That is you lying to yourself. All right, the next tool, the anger test. A lot of people feel like they do not have a right to be angry or they talk themselves out of their anger. So I want you to ask, where are my boundaries and how can I feel them? And and the way you feel them is your body kind of feels a little sick. You feel like activated and something about you feels a little bit like nauseous and like grossed out. That's a good sign of boundaries being activated. And if somebody violates your boundaries, you will notice it because you will feel like a almost panic, fight, flight, run kind of feeling. You might find yourself spouting protests, in your own mind, like, I didn't sign up for this. They didn't tell me they were going to do that. That's not okay. This behavior isn't all right. That doesn't sit right with me. Know that that is your health and your body saying that. Your body is saying, this does not feel okay. So your job is to respect that, know it, and back up and ask, how can I make a physical change in the physical world so that I am not put in a position like that ever again? It is up to you to do that so that you are not violating your own boundaries by allowing bad behavior that is not okay with you. So, what would that look like? What would that look like? Me setting up physical circumstances where I'm not going to get violated in the same way. Not allowing a person into my house so that the behavior is possible or repeatable, or not expecting that person to show up in the exact time I think they will, or they say they will, whatever the thing is, like, be real clear with you. Stay in reality. Stay in love with the truth of what is because you witnessed their behavior and that is now clear. All right, the next tool, be clear, be true. Or is it working? If you are a person who feels bad or is being guided by rethinking, you know, moves that you made and was I too harsh? Did I do this right? Or you're afraid to confront something and you don't want to be gentle about the way you confront it and like, well, yes, I'm mad and this wasn't okay, but like I don't know if I should say something. Whatever the situation is, whatever is happening in this relationship, I want you to ask, is it working? Is the strategy you're employing right now working? And if it's not, then you just need to look at that. You need to be clear, you need to be truthful. You need to be true with what works. So, a recent example of like what I think is really incredible, crystal clear boundary setting of what works. I was arguing with one of my kids about safety at Knott's Berry Farm. I was yelling and I was threatening. I was saying, if you don't do this, but it wasn't working. And then finally, a guard in like a tower at a ride at Knott's Berry Farm said, you know what? You have to leave. It's that simple. So we had to leave. That was so simple. It's not mean, it just is. So, what can you do that is effective in changing the circumstance? If you are in a lie of your own feelings and what you think could be done, and if you're saying to yourself, I have all this power and I can make something happen, and if I could just say it this, I think you probably know the truth. If you tell someone explicitly the rules and they don't respect the rules, for example, clean up after yourself, clean up as soon as you're done. And they do not do that. How do you work with a person who has bad boundaries? You have to prevent them from being in a situation where they will do that again. They cannot stay in your house. They cannot use that room, whatever the thing is. It just is. It's not mean. It just is. All right. The next tool is a mantra. Being in reality is being loving. Don't get recruited into crazy town. Got to stay outside of crazy town and know that in crazy town, it is a system that operates on, it has its own laws. Everyone is paying attention to all these made up rules. And if you tolerate it and you act normal, you're just now reaffirming everyone being crazy. So for you to stay healthy and stay outside of that system and be like, no, this isn't okay. I'm not going to participate. That is actually the best way for that person to change. If you are staying outside of it and you're not supporting it, that gives them the opportunity to see themselves. You're a healthy mirror. That is what that does. It's loving. All right. The next tool, the time when we let go. It's a moment when you step back and you say, you know what? I can't change this. I I fully accept I cannot change this. I step back, I let go of the belief I can control things. It is so freeing. It is such a relief. And to really just accept that powerlessness and really know it in our body, it's like when all of the answers start to flood in. So, what I'm saying, this tool is just resign yourself to God, resign yourself to the whole picture of what is and accept it and embrace it and just let go of the belief that you can control the world. And then everything you need to know will flood in from there. Okay. The next tool is a mantra. I do change. I have changed. I will change. And this is a mantra for in the moments you feel really overwhelmed or really frustrated with yourself, like I am stuck. I'm not changing. This is a loop that keeps going. I feel frustrated with my own weakness or whatever the thing is that is making you feel powerless and down on yourself. I do change. I have changed. I will change. You are actually changing. And by focusing on something, it is in progress. And just wherever you know you are working in the moment that you're feeling frustrated or powerless, I want you to just look at the thing that is your task. If you are repeating a loop that is so set in and then you feel really overcome with shame, the thought I'm failing is almost reaffirming the shame. It's reaffirming not changing. So just remember, like, you are not failing. You're so passionate about the issue that it's just not changing fast enough for you. And that just shows you where your heart lies. But the shame is not accurate or founded, and you absolutely are improving, but it is incremental. So stay in focus, stay in action, stay out of shame, which is a ruse. All right, the next tool is a journal prompt. And I just want you to think through this in your journal. Often, when you are not being honest with yourself about your role in a sick system, we're thinking, oh man, they're so bad. They're so sick. We're really fixated on what the other person is doing, but we haven't actually recognized what how we are participating. And so what we do is we fixate on what we wish wasn't true. We think that we're better than them. We think about how wrong they are, and we get really focused on that. We just dwell. So instead, the journal entry, I want you to ask yourself, what can I work on that is more honest with me? How can I be more honest with me and everyone around me? And so by that, I mean, like, ask yourself what you can work on. I want you to complete the rest of that sentence. What can I do to be more honest? Like, I think a lot of us get stuck in fear of loss, fear of being rude, fear of being confrontational. So just tune in. How can I be more aligned with truth? What's something that I can do that's more truthful? If you have children that are being affected by a system and they are coping with how it's affecting you, you can add this to your journaling practice. Like, what can I do to share with my kids what I'm working on and where I am struggling, but where I'm trying to go. I think a lot of the time, if you have kids, they're really how they're the worst affected by situations like this is they see everything that's happening and no one is honest with them about it. And so they feel like not only is this a dangerous situation, but everyone's lying. And therefore I feel completely alone and I feel completely like no one is going to be able to help me. So if you can just involve them in a safe and responsible way and say like, Here is a situation I'm working on. Here is how I am struggling, but this is what's helping me. And know that I see you, I'm with you, and you can always talk to me about this too. Like let them see the process of work and let them see the process of change and not being afraid to change. Because change can feel like it's impossible when you're just getting that boulder rolling. But as soon as you have momentum, it will feel familiar and it'll become habit. And once it has become habit, you'll realize you've already changed miles beyond what you thought was possible when you started. So just think about how can I start to build momentum in a routine of positive actions. That's the goal, is just to get a positive routine where you have more strength, more empowerment. I send so much love. And I'm going to close in a minute, but stay for the closing. I'm going to talk to one person in particular. Before I close, I want to thank my latest sponsors. If anyone has the means to support the show, you can head to yaywithme.com or find me on Patreon. And if you can't, if you don't have the means, totally understand. If you could share this with someone that it could help, that would be amazing too. So, in closing, I really like 12 step because there's nothing more inspiring than seeing yourself in someone else and know that you can lift each other up beyond what a book or individual therapy can do sometimes. It's so inspiring. When I hear people say things like, it's not my place to change this person, what I hear is, I don't think I can change them and I don't want to lose them and I don't want to hurt them and I'm afraid of offending them. And that's fine if that is what you choose. If that is what you choose, though, you have to make it your job to stay so grounded and really keep firm boundaries that keep you healthy. Like you cannot participate in the wishy-washy boundaries that have made them sick, and you cannot normalize their sickness. You have to be in honesty and in truth and be loving, but it requires you set extra firm boundaries. It is healthy. It is clear. It is true. Just be clear and be true. And lastly, to the person who wrote to me, this person that wrote to me is in a very tough situation, not by their design. They ended up in a relationship with somebody where they are bound to them with a child, but they know that this person is not healthy and is also not honest. And so the question is like, how do you navigate that? I have two opposite and very compelling motives for staying in the relationship or staying out of the relationship away from this person. So, there, if you are in a situation like this where you're simultaneously bound to a sickness or a sick person, and it's a situation beyond your control, like finances, a child, or whatever. Know that you are always going to have, it's like a teeter-totter. There's always going to be this little divining rod in the middle that tells you where you stand with the pros and the cons. I always refer to this when you're dating as the assessment hat. You're always wearing a giant hat that says assessment hat. Your job is just to assess what is what is the right thing for me to do? What is the truth of what is happening? What is the best option for me? Your job is just to constantly weigh that answer. And it'll change day to day. So your assessment hat is always on, forever and always. No matter how long you've been in a relationship, it's forever on. It might seem like a bad thing, but it's actually just being in truth. We are always active in designing our correct and healthiest life. Some days the answer is no, it's not healthy for me to be in this relationship. And some days it is, you know what? It is endurable for right now, and I need to get these ducks in a row. So we have to course correct all the time for what our life ingredients need to be. And for right now, it might be too much to negotiate getting out of that situation. Might be better to be in the situation than not be in the situation for today, right now. Ultimately, with the space and the permission to allow ourselves to decide, what do I choose for my life? What do I choose for the future? We might have a different assessment of what needs to happen, but we need to allow ourselves the permission to make that choice and not come from a place of dire fear, loss. What if I can't? I can't possibly. So if you find yourself in that dire state of like I can't possibly, now is not the time to weigh that choice. But tomorrow you might, the day after that you might, a year from now you might. The answer will always be different, but you need to allow yourself the freedom of asking it. And so, what is, I'm giving you what I would ask you to reflect on. If I'm in your situation, I'm asking myself, like, what can I deal with day to day to survive? What can I do to take care of myself day by day to be mentally sound? I think right now I would probably just be trying to get through pregnancy, needing support through that process, but also making sure I'm protecting myself and not violating myself. So, not fooling myself into thinking I can trust this person or this person is safe and this person is loving. Like, stay in reality, stay outside of that mentally, but negotiate your living situation. Put that at the utmost importance. I need a healthy, sustainable, protected living situation. Conversely, if that person is making you feel worse, feeling crazier, feeling panicked, feeling unsafe, the priority becomes how do I find a different living situation where I'm safely away from this person? So I think really what I'm asking you to do is think completely based in concrete, objective parameters and not get lost in could this work? Could I fix it? Could I tolerate this person's behavior long term? If your body is trying to make you think in that way, if you're mentally toying with that negotiation of could I tolerate the behavior long term? If you need to do that right now, you need to do that right now. But know that when we betray our own values consistently for a long period of time, we just start to grow scar tissue over something that is telling us, I'm not worth loving. I'm not worth my own bar. When we violate ourselves at our own hand, it erodes at our self confidence, it erodes at our self worth, and it makes our alarm bells just, we stop hearing them. We start to go deaf to our own alarm bells. So I just wanted to say that, like, I don't think if this is not sitting right with you now, I do not think this is your life. Is it your life? I want you to ask yourself that. Is being with this person your life? I thought it was my life because I didn't think I had what it took to walk away. I was like, I don't know if I'm capable of walking away from this. But I realized that it was going to kill me to stay in a relationship that was that dysfunctional. Maybe your life is meant to be light and full of love and connection and support and health. Maybe your life is meant to be with someone else who honors you above all else. That can be your future. I know that's a lot to think about right now. That can be your future. You don't have to solve how to get there from here today, right now. The only thing you have to do right now is honor what is true for you. Recognize what you need to take care of yourself and stay sane right now, and then honor what is true for you deep down and let go of how it happens. But know that the truth is the truth is the truth is the truth. You cannot negotiate it. You can't talk yourself out of it. It just is. So just recognize what is, hold on to it, have that vision, have that bar, and just take care of yourself. Go through the motions of managing and creating more safety, more stability, more of what can empower you. Walk in the direction of health. And that is know that it will be a gradual process and you will, if you listen inward consistently, you will know what the next step is one at a time. But you need support and you need to listen to you. I send you my love. Know that you do have it in you and smile.